Hey everybody.
Sean and Kelly here, Price and Price Group of eXp Realty, and what are we talking about today?
Well,
It's
I
the
let the elephant out
Yes.
of the corner, and we're going to be discussing something that, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you're fully aware of is going on with litigation and real estate agents' commissions. Of course, maybe you weren't under a rock, maybe you just don't live and breathe real estate. I mean, who doesn't, right?
All right, so we're talking about commissions.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Okay, you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to be we are not lawyers.
Wait, no, listen, we're not lawyers.
We're not
and
lawyers.
I am not going to emote.
You're
And
not
I'm
gonna
not, no,
emote.
I'm not. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna insinuate any personal feelings.
I believe this will not happen. So far, so good.
Thank you.
Impressive. Okay.
I
All
need
right.
to go and visit. Can I plug my dermatologist about Botox?
To help you not emote.
Right.
Okay. All right. So you're going to do all the speaking since you're not emoting. I want to make this fun. All right. Here we
And
go.
fun at work. So the first thing we really must mention is that commissions are now and have always been negotiable.
Yes. Yes.
In fact, in contracts and everything, in fact, they've always been negotiable
in fact,
are.
yeah, that's
Yes.
a key word. In fact,
Maybe not
And-
in practice with every agent. I don't know about. I can't speak to that. We've
Yeah.
always.
But we'll get into that in a second.
Fun.
No emoting.
I'm not.
So the reason we bring that up is because the lawsuits that Kelly referenced earlier, a lot of these lawsuits are based on the fact that there are accusations that the large brokerages have all gotten together to maintain high commission rates, and that it's antitrust laws. Again, we're not lawyers. I don't know all the ins and outs of the situation, but that simple fact of them all getting together to maintain the high commission rates, it's not true. We don't see this. We've never been with a brokerage that required it. You see,
We've actually been, our brokerage contracts state the opposite,
Yeah.
that there is no set fee ever.
That's right. We have Redfin, which is a large discount brokerage. We have other large discount brokerages. We have agents within brokerages that are not discount brokerages, but the agents are discount
Yeah,
agents.
like they'll charge flat fees,
Yeah, they'll
things
charge-
like that, like $300 to list your home and put it on the MLS, and then they're done.
Yeah.
Now, many of your better brokerages, they don't allow their agents to do that, but if you will see some agents doing that.
Yeah. So to say it's not negotiable is absurd. So that's something we had to put out there, and you just have to be aware of these facts. Now, there have been some changes that have happened
Right.
since this lawsuit came through. There have been some changes in language just to make even more
Right.
clarification, which we're going to go through that in a second.
Yeah, we're going to show you the actual contracts and let you read the language as we read it to you. So
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
driving, you can still hear it.
That's right.
But one of the changes was on Bright, right? On the actual multiple listing service.
Yes. So
right?
the multiple listings are, and I don't know if NAR presented this first or the multiple listing services, but however this happened.
NAR is the National Association
Yes,
of Realtors.
they're part of a lot of these lawsuits. So it used to be that there had to be an offer to a buyer broker, buyer's agent of $1.
At minimum of $1.
Minimum of $1. So there was a requirement for there to be that offering, and now the offering is a minimum of $0. So
Right.
there's been a $1 change.
Yes.
But has that changed the industry? Has that changed what's happening in the industry? Not so much. We're going to cover that here in a second.
Yeah.
But that's been the major thing that we've seen is just this $1 tweak so far.
Yeah.
Is that the final change? We don't know, but that's where we are so far.
I don't know.
All right, so we're going to get into some language here, and Kelly is our fantastic out loud reader who also does not emote. So she's going to very dryly
shall
read through this
robotically
information.
read.
So let's start with paragraph 12, compensation, and then we'll explain what this means.
Okay, so this is the seller
Yes.
signing their listing agreement. This is the context here. Okay, so we have broker compensation. Seller will pay broker total compensation of blank % of gross sales price, or blank dollar amount, or blank % of gross sales plus blank dollar. So there are a whole lot of combinations and options that the seller can decide they want to compensate the broker.
Yep.
So this would all be called broker compensation if during the term of the agreement anyone produces a buyer ready, willing, and able to buy a property.
Okay, so the key terms here, number one, broker compensation. That language is used because when you sign an agreement, Even Kelly and I, as your agents, we work for EXP. You're signing this agreement with EXP, the brokerage,
Yeah.
or whoever
We're
the
just
brokerage
the
is.
agent who works and represents our brokerage.
That's right.
In this case, EXP.
During the term of this agreement, anyone produces a buyer ready, willing, and able. So in this agreement, that means that if a buyer comes off the street, knocks on your door, we're going to work that transaction
My
for you.
cat found your buyer.
Yeah, that's right.
I
That's
get
right.
compensated. Well, EXP gets.
Yeah, that's right. So this.
I have a really good cat. Oh,
You have a great cat. So this number right here, if you can see my mouse, if you can't see my mouse, I'm not sure how this is going to translate, but the seller will pay a total compensation of blank percentage. So this is the area that is kind of under question, because let's just say, this is not a standard agreement, but let's just say that this compensation is, let's make it fun, 7%. So you agree to pay us as your listing agents 7%.
Our brokerage, 7%.
Yes, our brokerage, 7% of the sales price, okay?
yeah.
So then we're going to go on a little bit further. So that means that no matter how the buyer comes to buy this property,
You're paying
you are
our
paying
broker
a
7%.
7% commission. So now
Okay.
we go into the buyer agency compensation.
Okay, so the buyer agency, all right, keep in mind, this is still the seller signing this
Yes.
sales agreement, right? So buyer agency compensation is the amount taken from the broker compensation, so from that top number, that
From that
7%, and paid to any brokers representing buyer in this transaction, which is called the cooperating broker. The seller is aware that buyer agency compensation can be any amount. Broker and seller agree that the buyer agency compensation, if any, so that could be 0, will be, and the seller gets to choose. Okay, I want to compensate them blank. Again, we're at percent of sales price or dollar or a combination thereof, right?
And the key thing here is, like Kelly said, is the seller gets to choose. Now, the seller and the broker make the decision. So it's broker and seller, because this is actually coming out of the broker's commission, which was negotiated up here,
Yeah.
the 7%. So they have to come to an agreement.
That's right. That top sentence of C, taken from the broker compensation. So
Yep.
that's from the 7%. Of that, the seller wants to negotiate and contribute, wants to agree that this is, we're going to contribute this much to
Yep.
the buyer's agent.
That's
It
right.
can be 0,
It can
right?
be 0, or it can be 7% if
Yeah.
the broker agrees, which I don't see why a broker would agree. But there are some discount brokers, this is what we're talking about, like with
Yeah.
discount brokerages and so on and so forth. So this is completely negotiable.
I want to highlight, the italicized at the bottom. Brokers' compensation and the sharing of compensation between brokers are fully negotiable and are not fixed, controlled, recommended, or suggested by law or any multiple listing service or association of realtors.
Okay.
Okay? It's really negotiated between the seller, which is the principal, and the brokerage represented by the agent,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
So that's where the number comes from.
So this is on the seller side, okay? Now we're going to go to the buyer side. So the buyer, in there, we've talked
So this
about...
is a whole different contract, right?
And this is buyer to buyer agent,
Right.
and we've talked about representation and why this is important. This is why you want to have a buyer broker agreement with your
Yeah.
agent, so that you know what they're being compensated, because there could be some responsibility for you financially.
Okay.
This is the buyer broker agreement.
Okay, so we've shifted gears to the buyer from the broker agent. The buyer will pay compensation in the amount of blank percent of gross sales or blank dollar amount, which is called the broker fee, if to the broker if buyer enters into a contract to acquire any real property during the term of agreement and goes to settlement on that contract anytime thereafter. Buyer is responsible for payment of broker fee at settlement, not seller, buyer.
Yes, buyer is responsible to pay the broker fee.
Right. If broker receives any compensation from the seller or seller's representative for services covered by this agreement, that amount will be credited toward the buyer's obligation to pay broker fee. Okay? So that's saying that if the seller on that side
If the
did
seller
allow
here-
some payment to this buyer's agent, that's going to be deducted from what this buyer is agreeing to pay
Yes.
his agent, okay? Broker may retain any additional compensation offered by the seller or seller's representative, even if this causes the compensation paid to the broker to exceed the fees specified above. So let's give an example of that.
Okay, so let's say we're at here. Let's say we did 7%.
Yeah,
And
so
the
7%
seller-
of 700, $100,000.
Yep. And then the seller agreed and the broker agreed to offer the buyer's agent 3.5%. Let's just split it in the
Let's
middle.
say they were going to give half, 3.5%.
Let's say here that the buyer agreed to pay the buyer agent 3% of the sales price.
Right.
Okay. So the seller is offering 5.5% higher than what the buyer has agreed to pay. So that is where this says that the extra 0.5% would go to the buyer's agent.
Correct. Now let's talk about what happens if on the seller agreement, they were only offering 2% to the buyer's agent. But the buyer has an agreement with his broker, his or her broker, to pay 3%. What happens to that, right?
Well, based on this language,
the buyer would have to come up with that 1% broker fee, right? Again, this too is negotiable. It's not unheard of for negotiations to addendums to be made to contracts to negotiate that once they're under contract. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
And it can be negotiated with the buyer agent. It can be negotiated with the contract. It could be put into the seller's the contract to the seller that they're there's all kinds of ways to negotiate this. The key word, it's all negotiable.
Is it time? Can I bring up yet the implications?
No, we're gonna do that in a second.
Okay, but I will get to.
Yep, you will. Yep, no emoting.
I'm not. I caught myself.
Okay, so this one we're talking about how do we know what the seller's offering? Okay, so in this example, this is what we would see in the multiple listing service. And my understanding is that Zillow shows this now, Redfin shows this.
Yeah,
this
they didn't
is all
used
public.
to show this.
Yeah, so this is all public information. You can see on any given property what the buyer agency compensation is, okay?
Why is this important?
This is very important because, number one, well, actually, let's go straight to your point. Let's go straight to your point of
the implications?
Yes, the implications. Okay, so I am a buyer's agent. Say that I am working with Kelly and I have agreed to pay her on my buyer broker agreement. I am the buyer. She is the buyer's agent. I've agreed to pay her 3% of the sales price.
I'm worth no less than 3%.
That's right, okay? So we go and she looks in the multiple listing service at this property and she sees that the compensation is 2%.
Yeah. Now
what's going to happen here? What's the implication?
And I'm taking you. This came in like we're going to go see 4 properties. Hey, Sean, I just want to let you know, I've booked us. We're going to go see all these properties. They fit. I said, I just want to let you know that on this one, you're going to have to pay an extra 1% because they're not covering your full fee to me.
Yeah.
So
you're going to have an extra 1% in closing costs because what the seller's offering.
At that point, what do?
So I, as the buyer,
look at the sales price, do some calculations.
Yeah, and I look at it and I say, okay, this is $700,000 house. I've got to bring an extra $7,000 to closing. I don't have $7,000, so.
Or will yes.
I say to Kelly, I say, well, I can't afford to pay you extra. Would you take less? Option 1. Option 2, do you think we can negotiate with the seller to get them to cover the difference? Or option 3, if either one of those would happen, then I don't want to go see the property.
Right, and that happens a lot. And the other thing that can happen is in our market where we currently have multiple offers and people are bidding above ask and waiving contingencies or doing appraisal gaps. Okay, so let's say in this scenario, it may not appraise for what they're going to have to offer on the property, and excuse me. So they're like, okay, I can give a $10,000 appraisal gap. I've got the finances to cover that shortage, right? Well, if you're having to pay me an additional 1%, you're not going to be able to give that gap, or you're not going to be able to offer as much. So I just really want to stress that I worry that if sellers don't offer buyer broker payments, they're going to undercut what their offers are going to get on their homes. And that, I mean, we always say that property values are going up and up and up. If this happens, that's when we're going to see property values going down because buyers are not going to be able to afford the prices and pay their own brokers. So, and maybe that's how the world at large wants it to be. and everything will adjust to that, but that is a huge implication.
And to be very clear, a buyer's agent cannot and will not decide what properties the buyer goes to see based on commission.
We show you what
Yeah.
works with everything, with your search criteria placed.
Yeah, just like, okay.
We show you anything.
This falls into the same category as, let's say that we've got a buyer right now, for example, who their max budget is $525,000. And if they're looking at a $525,000 townhouse, then we're going to have a conversation because that townhouse is going to bid up to $550,000. Did you find some more money? Are you able to go higher?
Right.
And if they're not, we're not going to go see the property because it's wasting their time.
Okay,
So
that does bring up a good point. And we talked about the agency relationship and how we're fiduciaries, right?
Yeah.
There are parts of our contract that even say, our buyers tell us, hey, don't even take us to a property that's out of this. It could be perfect, but don't take us if it costs this much, right? Like what you were saying. Sellers who are getting offers, they're like, don't even show us
offers
anything,
below,
or don't show us competing offers. Don't show us until this date, right? Everything is drawn out. One concern is if buyers say, hey, agent, don't show me any search criteria where the seller isn't covering my fees because I'm not going to be able to afford it. And in that case, that's kind of like,
and that's a situation where the buyer has chosen that.
That's where if we have a buyer broker agreement and they tell us, I'm ordering you not to show me these, we're not allowed to show that, right? So that's something too that's kind of weird.
So this is kind of a conversation that is explaining everything, but also with a seller, because a lot of sellers right now are thinking, hey, I no longer have to offer buyer compensation. You never did have to offer it, but strategically, if you want to think about it, you do need to think about the consequences of offering or not. And it's your choice. Ultimately, it's your choice. And
because the money has to come from somewhere, right? It's not like, I mean, real estate agents and professionals, this is their jobs, right? Livelihood. I mean, we can't just decide we're not going to tip the wait staff and expect them to still be there. I mean, this is, I don't know. It's kind of.
So we'll see how this plays out.
I'm excited to see how it plays out. Everything needs to be perfectly fair and for everybody.
An interesting point here, and
did I make it?
No,
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I'm bringing up a new one. I'm loading. Interesting point here is my understanding, and we weren't in real estate back then, but in the 80s and maybe 70s, buyer brokers did not exist. So there was no buyer representation. And what ended up happening was there were a lot of buyers that were being taken advantage of because they didn't understand contracts. There was no representation. Only the seller had representation. So there was a lot of
we've heard
issues.
Really bad stories.
Buyer brokerages, our buyer broker agreements came about because of this. And then the buyers couldn't afford to pay the agent. The agent couldn't afford to work with a buyer if they weren't compensated fairly. So then they had to come up with a way of how this could all work out. So this is the system they came up with. So now they're looking to unravel the system. So if they come up with a better way, great. But if we go back to what caused the system in the first place,
then there were a whole bunch of lawsuits and a lot of buyers unrepresented who were just totally taken advantage of and raked under the coals, which is that how you
rake over the coals, not under.
Under. I prefer to be under the coals.
Be aware. All right. So in summary, the commission situation is commissions are always negotiable. That does not mean that your agent will negotiate. You may have an agent that says, this is what I'm worth, this is what I do, I will not work for less.
Just like you might go to a restaurant where if you show your butt, then the waitress is going to spit in your food before they bring it out. Do they all do that? No.
That's a horrible analogy.
But they do it.
That's a horrible
analogy. Everybody knows that.
No, it's just like you go to a restaurant that's right next door, you've got a Western Sizzler steakhouse, and you've got
Nobody even knows what that is.
It's a cheap steakhouse.
You're a hick.
And then right next door... Yes, I have it. Anyway, and then right next door you have Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, $60 steak and a $19 steak. You choose which one you want to go with. If you don't want to work with an agent that won't negotiate, go with someone who will, but you're going to get the consequences of doing that. So be aware.
Beware.
Beware of discount agents. They may meet your purposes and what you're trying to do. They may not. It may end up costing you money. So that's the story.
You do what works for you, bro.
That's right. But it is always negotiable and you always have a choice. All right? I think that's it.
Is the elephant, what happens once you talk about the elephant? Is it like...
You eat it. You eat it. And how do you eat it? One bite
One
at a
bite
time.
at a time, bro.
That's right. Yeah, like those burnt ends I had last night.
Oh, those burnt tips
That's-
from Mookie's,
yes, they're so
Mookie's
good.
barbecue
Mookie's, yes.
in Great Falls.
Highly recommended.
Yum, so good. Oh
Yes.
man,
All right.
kind of want that again.
All right. We'll see you next week. Bye. Hey everybody, it's Sean Price here, Price and Price Group, eXp Realty, with this week's market snapshot. You'll notice that I'm not in the normal environment. I'm actually at a open house this weekend shooting this video, and so if the video is a little shaky, just bear with me. But it's just been a crazy week. What we're seeing in the market is we're going to see as we get to the graphs, you'll see that buyer activity has dropped just a little bit, but the feel of the market is still very competitive. I will say that traffic seems to be down a little bit this week compared to the previous weeks. We'll see if that plays out with next week as well. We'll just kind of see what the cause of that could be. It could be some spring issues. It could be people traveling. It's just hard to tell. So we will certainly bear with this and watch it and see what's happening over the next few weeks. So it's worth staying in tune for. And then we did see a little bit of an increase. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep my hand out of this. We did see a little bit of an increase in the interest rates this week, so that may have a little bit of bearing on it. But prices are not coming down. It's just, again, the traffic seems to have calmed down just a little bit. So it could be an opportunity for buyers. Still a great time to sell. There's still a lot of competition. So let's just see how this plays out. So let's get into the graphs and show you what exactly has been going on for the last 7 days. And as always, the buyer activity is the orange line, and you can see there's a little bit of a dip in buyer activity over the last 7 days. Overall, it has been a dramatic upward trend. And then you can see inventory is kind of plateaued. It is increasing as we go into the spring, but for the last few weeks, it's kind of plateaued. So this gapping in here is what's given us the strength of the seller's market. And you can see the seller's market strength has just been increasing. So let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks with regards to if the interest rates stay where they are or if they go up a little bit more before they start coming down. This might be a window of opportunities for buyers. It's nowhere near this window of opportunity yet, but if we plateau here for a little bit before we shoot up, that's still a window of opportunity. If you have any questions, please feel free to let us know, and we'll see you on next week's snapshot.
All right. Hey, everybody. We've got Tatiana here with us for our Mortgage Minute.
Hey, Tatiana.
Hello, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Make it happy. Give us good news.
Yes.
I will try. All right, well, not with my first slide. though.
No.
So this week rates, they went up slightly. We see 7.23%. The National Association of Realtors does expect rates to be steady in the 6 range until the end of the year, but it will take a lot of ups and downs to arrive there ultimately. And the Fed has a firm 2% inflation rate goal. And with that favorable economic reports on the job market, it's unlikely that they will cut rates until the goal came more of reality. And the latest announcements from Fed kept rates steady again, signaling things are on the right track. And hopefully home buyers may have a more favorable market in 2024. So with the strong economic data has pushed back expectations of when mortgage rates will drop. But the experts still believe that they will go down this year. We just probably won't see them drop as soon as many actually anticipated. And the analyst with Fannie Mae and the Mortgage Bankers Association, MBA, both project that rates will drop going into 2024 and throughout the next year. Fannie Mae economists expect rates to drop more quickly, falling below 6% by the last quarter of 2024. But MBA forecasts that it's gonna happen in the first quarter of 2025. So we'll see what happens. In meantime, rates are, where they are, and there are some ups and downs. If you don't feel like gambling while you're looking for property and you want to secure that rate, you might want to think of locking it.
That's
Yep.
exactly right. Yeah, because the prices are going up, so if the rates are gonna be staying the same for a while and prices are doing nothing but increasing,
Yeah.
it would be silly to wait if you didn't have to.
Yeah, and it could push some of buyers out of their qualified price range.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
Yeah, that's important. So this could be, from a buyer's perspective, for the buyers that have been waiting for rates to come down so they could jump in the market. Hopefully they'll hear this and heed this time.
Yeah,
That it's still a window of opportunity, because when those rates come down, we're already seeing the multiple
Yeah.
offers. When the rates come down, it's going to turn into 10 times the
Yeah.
offers. So now there's an opportunity. Like, get in there now and take advantage of this, so that when the rates do come down, they can refinance if they're able to, or whatever that strategy is, but not pay so much in the bidding wars.
Yeah, that's true. And the people who still think, well, I think the prices are gonna go down, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's look back at the last year and a half, 2 years, where the interest rates have actually doubled, right? About doubled. And you know what? That never happened. The prices still continue to increase even during that doubling of the interest rate. So now that they're holding steady, people still have to move. This is still a really, really hot area,
Yep.
and the prices are definitely not going to be going down.
Yep. All right.
That's
Okay.
my
Any other bad news about interest rates?
I think that's enough for today.
All right. Okay. Well, we've got questions for you, or need some help from you regarding first-time home buyer programs.
Yes, and I know, Tatiana, you do first-time home buyer webinars and seminars, and we kind of want to tap into your knowledge, and you give us the lowdown.
Yeah, I do webinars once a month in the evening after work. So if somebody's interested, they can tap in, even if they drive in, it's webinar. You just log in and you just listen. So yeah, I do those, and
I
I
thought you
know
said even if you drive into the webinar, I'm like, I'm gonna do that one.
a little bit advertisements second.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about first-time home buyers first.
Yeah, just real quick plug. So anybody from our viewership,
Yeah.
all three of you, anybody who's watching that would like to attend this first time home buyer webinar,
Yeah.
let us know. We can connect you with Tatiana, make sure you guys can get into that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I love first-time home buyers. I love these people. They're full of questions. They're enthusiastic. They're a little scared, and they're just ready to learn. So
Yeah.
I love this group of people.
Me too. That's they're what I like the most is when we go to settlement and they're so excited and happy that they got their first home, and it's a big step, and they overcame that fear of commitment, right? And it's a great feeling. But the first time home buyer, just want to say who typically is considered for first time home buyer, and definition could vary from program to program, from state to state, but typically the definition of first time home buyer is a person who hasn't owned a property in the past 3 years.
Okay.
So that's a sometimes some programs or grants, they require a person not owning a home ever, or in some cases it's a little bit different definition, and I'll get to it in a second. So the main benefit is for first-time home buyers is low to no down payment programs.
Okay.
Grants are available, and possibility of lower interest rates.
Okay.
So those are the main benefits. If you're a first-time home buyer, you are within certain income bracket, you might get better interest rate than someone who is returning purchaser.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so since we are in Virginia, I want to talk about a couple of programs here in Virginia.
Okay.
And the main one is VHDA program. And VHDA program, it stands for, well, it's actually, they shorten it to VH now. It's Virginia Housing. It's a nonprofit organization with the main goal of helping first-time home buyers. And for them, definition of first-time home buyer is someone who hasn't owned a primary home in the past 3 years. So that's a big difference.
Okay.
Wow.
It means that if you have an investment property and you were renting it out for 3 years, but in the meantime, you were living with, you haven't,
Yeah.
you rented something, right?
Right.
Or you lived with relatives or what have you, then you would consider a first-time home buyer to qualify for VH. And they have a couple of different options. They have 100% financing, and they also have grant. They do have some income limits, and income limits vary depending on the program. If you're getting that plus loan with 100% financing with 2 mortgages, I'll touch base on that in a second. Or if you get grants, so right here you can see, depending on what you're getting, depending on family size, and depending on the area you're buying, the income limits and purchase price limits are different. So it's important for the mortgage consultant to know your family size and your income to see if you qualify for the program. But actually, it's pretty reasonable. I think, look, $228,000 income, it's not bad at
No,
all.
that's not bad. I see this being really amazing. Like here's a great example. One of our kids who still lives at home while he's in school, we've toyed with the idea for him to go ahead and buy a small investment property while he still lives at home and gets his first job, obviously not making a ton of money. But then when he's ready to go out and buy his first primary home, this could be something that could work for a scenario like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly.
I
That's a
like
good
that.
point. Yeah. So just a little bit about the first program that I mentioned, the Plus loan. It can be conventional or FHA. And what they do is you get one mortgage, first mortgage for, let's say, if it's FHA, 96.5%. But then for the second mortgage, you get additional 3.5 to 5%. Depending on your credit score, you can get up to 5%. Basically, you're financing 101.5%.
Yeah.
And that 5% will cover the down payment of 3.5 plus additional 1.5 closing costs.
Wow.
So ultimately, you might come to the table with as little as half of the closing cost, and that
Wow.
would be all from you. With conventional is the same concept. It's just with conventional typically you can put as little as 3% down, so your first mortgage is 97%, and then the second mortgage is either 3 or 4.5, also covering the down payment and part of the closing cost.
That's cool.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Another option VH offers is the grant. And the grant is free money. It's not a loan. There's no repayment obligation at all. There's no second lien on a house. So it's pure free money. And it varies, the amount varies depending on what program. If you're doing conventional, like I mentioned, you put 3% down in typical situation. Here they're giving you 2%. So the grant, so you will have to come up with 1% down payment only and the closing cost. If you're doing FHA, if you get an FHA loan, then they will give you 2.5%. Again, the same thing for 1% down payment from you and the closing cost.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
That's great.
it's free, and like I said, no repayment.
Yeah.
Man, it pays to be a first-time home buyer.
It really, really does. I mean, these are really incredible programs.
Yeah, so that's VHD. I didn't want it to overwhelm with all sorts of, guidelines and
Yeah.
things like that, or requirements. One program that grant, actually not a program, I want to mention is Bird Seed program, and it's for first-time home buyers only. You can get grant for up to from $5,000 to $15,000, and here is the list of requirements. You have to be in this group
Okay.
as American Indians, Indigenous, African Americans, Hispanics. So whatever is listed here,
Yeah.
if a person belongs to this group, they could get this grant. And the property location has to be DC, Montgomery, PG County, or in Virginia, Arlington, Fairfax County, and
Yeah.
cities of Alexandria and Falls Church. There are really no guidelines on what credit score you need to have or income limits or anything like that. As long as you qualify for conventional FHA loan, they're very easy to work with. Like with any grants, except for VH. VH grant is open year round. There's no cutoff time. These grants, they do run out of funds. So you need to catch it when it's available, then it closes, then it reopens again throughout
Okay.
the year.
Okay.
Okay, does it typically open January 1 of each year?
Well, not necessarily. There's really no set. I think when they get funds, and then when they run out, and then they get again. So there's really no schedule as
Gotcha.
far as I know.
Okay.
Another one for Loudoun County, for example, one grant that offers 10% of the price assistance. It's you have to pay back, and there's the schedule how you do it, but you have to reside or work in Loudoun County for a minimum of 6 months prior to applying. So that's one grant that I wanted to mention, or program. Another one that's for employees of Loudoun County government and courts and public schools. They could get assistance of 10,000. You don't have to be first-time home buyers, actually, but they do have to they cannot own another property. So that's one caveat.
Can they combine these grants and have multiple at the same time?
No, you can have only one grant.
Okay.
Okay. But this one
Unfortunately.
is a grant, you don't repay this one, or this is just a program that you do have?
It's a program. It's
Okay.
I keep on saying grant, but it is a program. There is repayment.
Okay,
I didn't want to put it here again. Just
Yeah.
if somebody's interested, exactly like it says here, Loudoun County Public School Employee Homeownership Grant Program.
Mhm.
Just Google it, and it will come up with all the information that they need to know.
Wonderful, okay.
One more is Prince William first time homebuyer down payment assistance, and they have to be residents of Prince William, City of Manassas or Manassas Park, or they need to work there, and the property needs to be located in there as well. And the assistance is like here it says total 23 or 33% of approved sales price. So that's pretty huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, typically clients need to apply directly with the county to qualify for it, but then the bank, like I would do the main loan on the back end.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's giant.
So those are the immediate, in our immediate areas, grants and programs that I could think of.
And so basically, a first-time home buyer would want to talk to you just to see what they could and couldn't qualify for and what options they had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's good to say this is only a taste of the reason why your loan officer is going to ask you for. It's basically I've had the mortgage loan application process described to me one time as a financial enema, and it's kind of true, right? I mean, it's extensive and invasive, and it's a lot. But this is why. It's because your lender's going to look and see all the different things that you qualify for and put the pieces together and say, okay, this is the best thing that we have, and these are all the other options, and you have to know you got to get in there.
Clean it out.
Yeah.
It's true. But to your point, what I wanted to mention is when clients are shopping for a mortgage, and maybe they don't want to give that information, right? They don't want you to get in. But if you You do.
You gotta let her. She's the
If
doctor.
you do,
gotta
I
let her
can
in.
tell you what you actually can have, what I can offer you, versus if I just ask you general questions and it's not an application, then my hands are tied and I have limited information, and the client like that might be just missing out.
It's true.
I'm seeing her hands doing this, and I can't. I'm just
It's
getting
true.
up in there. And,
Love it up.
sorry.
We're going deep.
Yeah, but the people are just missing out.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to provide this information.
You
Yeah.
can do your very best with all the information,
That's
full
right.
disclosure, and that's why I think you make friends with your buyer clients a lot of times, because it's like there's nothing I really don't know about you. I have to look at I know where you go for coffee every day. I know that they
Okay,
would know.
legal disclaimer, we always keep, your clothes will always stay on, you can never be, there's no physical violation.
I know when we were applying for our loan, I thought, man, they're gonna see that I go to ABC Liquor every week. I'm like, I'm gonna say it's client gift.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
go pay attention to that, IRS.
The other thing I love about the first time home buyer definition is 3 years,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not just for really first time home buyers. It's also for those who, like, you get knocked down and you get up again. You're never going to keep you down, right? I mean, you can 3 years to recover from whatever you've been through, brush the dust off,
Yep.
and there you are, first time home buyer again, and you get to take advantage of so many of these programs, which is really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
wouldn't be able to say it better than this. You're right.
This is gonna be an evergreen video that will last forever.
We should play the song, I get knocked down.
That's right. You can find that thread. All right. Okay, any other questions or anything?
I have nothing.
Any other analogies?
I'll work on some more.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. Well, thank you for your time. And if anybody needs to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
571-245-3000.
All right. Thank you. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.